Welcome back to this edition of 1-1 Sports. I'm Chase Strasser.
I'm Jack Marcus.
And today we'll be talking NFL,
MLB,
and the NBA. And it all starts
right now.
Let's get things started with the quick hitters. Jack, let's start in the world of football, and something that's been talked about all season was talked about last season. 92% of the time it works every time. The brotherly shove, the tush push, whatever you want to call it. And now people are even starting to call for it to be banned around the NFL. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that the Eagles have done it right? They've got Jalen Hurts and Jason Kelce, one of the best.
I hear Jalen Hurts can squat 600 pounds.
That's what they say.
That's what they say.
I think maybe with a little help from Jason Kelce. But I think with one of the best centers in the league, pushing right through, but it's not even 1 yard. They're getting 3 or 4 sometimes because they're just going. Like we saw with Air Force a few weeks ago, just getting 10 yards on the field. I think that it being talked about being banned is just insane. It's like the shift in baseball. Play around it. Learn how to defend it.
I think it's interesting, too, just because it's not something where every NFL team is doing it to the standard that the Eagles are. The Eagles are doing it just so much better because of their personnel. They have a great offensive line. They have Jalen Hurts. I think it's until we get to a point where every NFL team is doing it and it's just a completely broken play, that's when you ban it. Yeah. But right now, it's just the Eagles. Absolutely. And no one can defend it, and no one can do it better than them.
Absolutely. It's the thing of just he's going to be down there somewhere, just throw it up situation with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. Until everyone is doing that and breaking the rules, you can't ban it.
Staying with the NFL, Tyson Bagent. There's been a lot of talk in Chicago. We've talked about him on this show. Justin Fields got hurt. They decided to start, instead of Nathan Peterman, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, they started Tyson Bagent, who a year ago was playing D2 football against schools like the Colorado School of Mines, which I didn't even know existed, but apparently they're a D2 powerhouse. And now he's starting in the NFL. Not only that, he whoops the Las Vegas Raiders, who are led by a veteran quarterback in Brian Hoyer. They destroyed them. And I know you have a lot of pride with Tyson Bagent.
A little bit of hometown love for Tyson Bagent. Went to Shepherd University, D2. Yeah, like you were saying, losing to the Colorado School of Mines last year, and now playing in the NFL 1-0 and starting. Shout out to Heath Marcus and Shepherdstown, West Virginia, little hometown. My dad went to school with his father. But
his father is amazing.
His father is a wonderful interview.
Built for TV.
Built for TV, indeed.
I wish I could arm wrestle. I know I wouldn't win, but just to meet him, it would be. I think I'd be more excited to meet the father than Tyson Bagent himself.
I think what we need next is Tyson Bagent's father on Pat McAfee's show. I think I need those two in a room together.
I think maybe, first he comes on one-on-one.
Right.
Well, maybe he goes on Pat McAfee first. It's a lesser program.
Right.
Compared to us here at one-on-one. So you go Pat McAfee, and then you make your way up
to one-on-one sports. Right. See who he can really be.
Come to a real professional
TV
show, sport television program.
Moving back to another football, going back to college, Michigan football back in the news again. Can't stay out of it with their scandals. Always something with them. Earlier, Harbaugh was suspended for the first few games this season, and now we're talking about cheating, going back to years and years of that.
And this is an interesting dilemma because it's a coincidence that suddenly Michigan's winning, and the allegations of the cheating, which is they've been paying for tickets through one employee and then sending them to people across the country, people like you and me, to just go to the game and film the signs. And it brings up this topic of discussion because play calling is so different in college because different schools have different resources, don't have the ability to do the headset to the QB type deal. So now Michigan's just been getting away with it, and it's still an ongoing investigation. There came out that there was a manifesto against Harbaugh. It is just a wild situation.
Yeah, with their last two profile losses being to TCU and Georgia, that raises even more things that
Non-Big Ten.
Right, non-Big Ten, and you don't know you're playing them until 2 weeks out or whatever, so you can't go scout them because games are over, right, when it's a college football playoff. And I even heard something that said they were sending signs to South Carolina last season after South Carolina lost, and then beat two big teams in Tennessee and Clemson. You know, they just can't stay out of the news, and it goes back far, which is really, it's a conspiracy that keeps unraveling that maybe you don't want it to.
Well, we love football, but the NBA season is here. It's getting underway. We'll talk about it later in the show. LeBron has officially confirmed that we knew he was going to try to play with Bronny as long as his health kept up. He is 38 years old. He's still doing amazing things on the basketball court. I think they finally put a minute restriction on him, which is crazy to say at this age, at this point in his career. But in a commercial for Bose, the headphones, he basically confirmed that he's also going to try to play with his second son, Bryce.
Yeah, Bryce is only 16, but is already 16, which means that's, 3 seasons left that he's got to play?
3 more plus the fourth, which would, I guess, be when he could play.
And be 42 years old then, maybe? I mean, but you said it right there at 38. He's still making miraculous moves. Last night alone, getting up, jumping well above the rim to block a pass by KD last night. I think that it's plausible, right? You saw how long that Tom Brady went, and in a different physical type of sport. I think LeBron's with that minute requirement, which is still 30 minutes a game, which it doesn't sound like that much of a time crunch that they're putting him under. But I think that he's got a little bit more longevity than you might think.
Well, LeBron has surpassed expectations all throughout his career, even as high as they were coming out of high school, and now he continues to do so. I believe this is his 21st season, 20-plus years later. And then finally, to cap things off, we just want to wish a congratulations to back-to-back WNBA champions, the Las Vegas Aces.
Yeah, in what turned out to be a relatively good series against that New York Liberty, looked like it was going to be kind of a squash of a finals.
They did so with missing a couple starters, and they still were able to cap off the series.
Missing and injuries, for sure. You see all the people in boots coming out for their parade, but they got it done.
And I think it's huge for the city of Las Vegas because it just continues to be this huge sports town. There's talks of an MLB team moving there, possibly the Athletics, or possibly something else. Maybe an NBA team when they reach the time for expansion. Put an NBA team there. They have the NFL team. Las Vegas just continues to be a market for athletics, and it'll continue to be, especially with the success of the Aces. But that'll wrap us up here with the quick hitters. Moving on, we'll talk World Series, MLB.
The Diamondback pitchers, he's gotten a couple good hits in there, and I think just overall he's a really great player in every area.
Thank you, Caitlin and Ethan, for talking MLB, the big pitching versus hitting matchup we've got in the World Series. We're now going to send it over to the NFL.
All Hallows Eve, a very important night for college students across the nation. But this year it's also very important for NFL teams because this year's trade deadline falls on that day at 4 p.m. I've got Jack Gill and Miles Hayford to break it down what has happened so far and look towards the future of what some NFL teams might do at the deadline. Jack, tell me what has happened so far.
So far, not much has happened. There's been a couple player swaps for late-round picks, a lot of 6th rounds for a player and 7th rounds, including players such as Van Jefferson and Randy Gregory, J.C. Jackson, and Mecole Hardman. But there's also been the trade for Kevin Byard. If Howie Roseman calls your phone, put that thing down immediately. The Eagles somehow were able to get Kevin Byard for Terrell Edmunds, a 6th-round pick, and a 5th-round pick. That is just absurd.
And it's not like Terrell Edmunds is a bad player, and I'm saying that fully with Steelers bias. He's not a bad player.
Not at all.
And like you said, if Howie Roseman calls your phone, you put that thing down. You do not pick that up because you're about to get a really good player stolen from you for some low draft capital. So let's get into your guys' predictions. We've got the list here in front of us. Starting with the quarterbacks, you've got 2 on your mind.
Yeah, I think Ryan Tannehill and Jacoby Brissett are the 2 most sought-out-for quarterbacks in this market so far. And with Ryan Tannehill's recent injury, I think he might get dealt before the deadline. And my prediction is I think he's going to be an Atlanta Falcon. I say this for a few reasons. One, Arthur Smith, head coach in Atlanta. Ryan Tannehill is already familiar with that system. Two, Desmond Ridder has not been playing his best football. So I think that's a move that probably will happen, and the Titans have Will Levis and Malik Willis in the batter with their depth. So I think that just makes too much sense to happen for the Falcons.
Miles, you see him staying in Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean, I see the need for the Falcons, but I just don't think the Titans are ready to commit to Will Levis and Malik Willis. We saw some flashes of Malik Willis last year, and he didn't look that great. And Will Levis, I don't know how he's going to do, so I don't think they're ready to commit just yet.
I also think Desmond Ridder has kind of been Arthur Smith's guy, so it might be tough to see them moving halfway through the season to Tannehill. But Jacoby Brissett also might be on the market.
Yeah, see, Jacoby Brissett was one of those players that was very good last year and just didn't get a fair shot with Deshaun Watson coming back from suspension. But signing with the Commanders in free agency, people thinking he's going to start over Sam Howell this year. Howell has been playing good, but Brissett is a quarterback that is good enough to start on a team that's not. A lot of people have pointed him to the Jets. A lot of people have pointed him to the Broncos and other teams, but I actually think he's going to stay in Washington. I don't think there's any team that is in too bad of a quarterback situation at this point that is still competitive that needs somebody. Zach Wilson has been playing decently, and I don't think it's worth it for the Jets to make a move for Brissett. So I think he stays in Washington.
Miles, you've got the same thing, him staying with the Commanders. Moving into one of the bigger names on your list, Derrick Henry, going to an AFC North team.
Yeah, I think he's going to go to the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, I think it's just a no-brainer for the Baltimore Ravens. To make the dynamic duo of Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, that's just, how do you defend that? Do you defend Lamar? Do you defend Derrick Henry? And with J.K. Dobbins hurt, Gus Edwards and Justice Hill have been a good fill-in, but they're not Derrick Henry. And I think the Titans going into a full rebuild would really benefit from trading a player that's about to be a free agent after this season, and he's 29. He's getting up there. I don't think it makes sense to keep him there.
Jack, you're also saying the Ravens. Now moving into the wide receivers, just saying for Derrick Henry, it used to be a high school lunch table conversation. Would you rather try to tackle Lamar Jackson or tackle Derrick Henry? How about both? Wide receivers, though, you've got both Broncos receivers on here, Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton.
Yeah, the Broncos have not had their franchise success that they've wanted to with Russell Wilson, and lots of people are pointing for them to make lots of moves during the offseason and during the midseason. But I think the only player that's actually going to get moved is Jerry Jeudy. I say this because Jeudy has just not performed the way he should have for a first-round pick, and I think the best team he can go to is the Indianapolis Colts. They could use more pass catchers on that offense. Josh Downs has been a nice surprise for them, as well as Michael Pittman, already elite. And Alec Pierce is a solid number 3, but I think adding Jeudy to that system would be great, plus helping Anthony Richardson back when he's healthy. And for now, Gardner Minshew as the quarterback. The Colts aren't in too bad of a situation with their record right now. So I think this is a move that they can make for maybe a day 2 or day 3 pick and could be useful for them.
And Miles, you have Courtland Sutton staying in Denver.
I do, because I think if they're going to move on from anyone, it's Jeudy. Courtland Sutton has been a proven contributor to this offense for years. I think they like him, but Judy's been kind of a disappointment considering where they drafted him. So I think Sutton is the more likely to be traded.
And then sticking with the wide receiver market, you've got 2 names on here that were big additions. Well, for Hunter Renfrow, it was the big contract extension that he got to be one of the highest paid slot receivers at his position. But then they bring in Jacoby Myers. Hunter Renfrow's kind of been left out to rot in this Raiders offense. You've got him on the move, and then Marquise Brown of the Cardinals might also be on the move as well.
Yeah, I think a move with Hunter Renfrow is just inevitable. It's going to happen. He's not getting the usage that he should be. And I think Hunter Renfrow, despite the Eagles just signing Julio Jones, I think Renfrow makes the most sense on the Eagles. There is not a solid number 3 there yet, even though Julio's on the team. He hasn't been in the game yet, like as a productive number 3. I think they could use a slot receiver outside of A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. And I actually think this is a deal that could happen in some sort of pick swap with Derek Barnett and some picks with Hunter Renfrow. So I think that's a deal that we'll probably see in the next coming days.
And Miles, why do you have him going to the Patriots?
I mean, just look at their wide receiver core. I mean, they've got like Kendrick Bourne and Juju Smith-Schuster, who's really done nothing this year. They really need some receiving help, and I think they could really benefit from Hunter Renfrow, who has looked somewhat good in the past, back before Jacoby Myers was on the Raiders. So I think the Patriots could really get the receiving help that they need from Hunter Renfrow.
And as we move on to the other side of the ball, you guys have a string of defensive ends here. Miles, which one of these names do you think is most likely to be traded?
I think Chase Young, he's going to be an impending free agent next season, and I think the Commanders need to move on from either him or Montez Sweat. I think they get the biggest package from Chase Young, and I think a team that could possibly get Chase Young is the Dolphins. They're trying to look for a move that goes all in, gets them to the Super Bowl, and their defense is, it's so-so. They've got some good secondary help, but their pass rush could use some help, so I think this could really make that push to the Super Bowl.
Dolphins are a team that traded for Bradley Chubb not too long ago. They'll also get Jalen Ramsey back. With the addition of an edge rusher, it might put them over the top. Jack, who among these names interests you the most?
It's got to be those two Washington edge defenders, man. Montez Sweat and Chase Young both are needing contract extensions, and it doesn't seem like the Washington Commanders are going to be signed both of them. I think one of them is going to go on the move, whether that's Chase Young or Montez Sweat. I think Chase Young is going to get moved to the Bears. I've been saying it for a while now. I think it just makes too much sense. The Bears made this huge splurge in free agency last year, but they didn't go after premier pass rusher. Chase Young has been excellent in his first few games this season. I think this move makes too much sense. Ryan Poles needs to get this done.
I love me a good Madden rebuild here and there. Looking at that Bears defensive line, just in terms of Madden ratings, I don't think there's anybody over 75 except for Yannick Ngakoue, and that was a late free agent addition. It seems, Miles and Jack, you guys have the Broncos trading quite literally their entire team, including their two best secondary players in Justin Simmons and Pat Surtain.
Yeah, I think Justin Simmons is gone. They said that they are open to trading really a lot of their premier players, and I think Justin Simmons is just too expensive to keep in a rebuild. And I think the Giants could be a team that could really want Justin Simmons. Besides Xavier McKinney, they don't really have much safety help, and I think it could really boost their secondary.
And Pat Surtain, one of the best young corners in the league, but you guys have him staying with the Broncos.
Yeah, the Broncos, well, they're a dumpster fire. I mean, Russell Wilson has not worked out. They're going to end up cutting ties with him after the season, I bet. Drake May, Caleb Williams, one of those players is going to be the quarterback for the future. They need to get as much capital as they need. It's not working. They need a rebuild. But I say this, Patrick Surtain is one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. You can't give that up. You can give up these other guys like Simmons. You can give up guys like Josie Jewell, for example. But you can't give up one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. That's going to be the cornerstone that they build around.
Another cornerback that I think, honestly, is one of the best and severely underrated, Jalen Johnson on the Bears. But the Bears have not been willing to give him the money that he's been requesting to be one of the best at his position. You guys have him staying in the NFC, but moving teams.
Yeah, the Bears are not going to let him go for cheap. They're a team that is trying to be on the rise. They're trying to exponentially get to the top and win a Super Bowl. And whether that's with Tyson Bagent or if that's with Justin Fields, whoever that is, they're trying to win. So they're not going to give up Jalen Johnson for cheap. But I say this because the 49ers have had some issues with cornerback depth in recent weeks. Diamador Lenore has not been playing too great. Trevarius Ward is solid, but is not the best number one corner, although he is very good. I think an addition of Jalen Johnson would make that defense from going to elite to being even better than elite, and I think that's just too necessary of a move to make.
And Miles, you have him going to the Cowboys, who lost their number one corner early in the season.
Yeah, I mean, losing Trayvon Diggs was a huge loss for this defense, and you can already see the impact. They started the year getting all these turnovers, and they've been dropping off a little since then. I think getting a premier corner like Jalen Johnson could really replace the hole that Trayvon Diggs' injury left. And if you even keep him beyond this year, then you've got a nasty duo of Jalen Johnson and Trayvon Diggs.
Well, I'm very interested to see the trade deadline, see what happens, see all the moves that go down. A lot of names that could be in new places starting next week in the NFL. Next up, we're getting started with NBA. It's the NBA season, and we've got Harry and Gabe to break it down for us. We just got through the first couple games. It's almost been a week since the start of the NBA season, so we've got a couple storylines, but plenty of games left to go. We got an in-season tournament now. Harry, start things off. What have you seen so far?
Well, I think it's going to be a very exciting NBA year. There's a lot of top teams, but the whole conversation is who's going to win it all. The Nuggets won it all last year, and that's who I'm going with again. I think they're going to go back-to-back. They have, returning the same starting five. Sure, they lost Bruce Brown and Jeff Green, but Christian Brown is going to step up. I just think he's ready for that role. And Peyton Watson, Julian Strawther, Calvin Booth has drafted extraordinarily well, and I just think he's, there's no reason not to trust him. Well, you have Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. Jokic, he rides horses all offseason and then comes in and just going to win MVP again.
It's a day job for him.
It's a day job. He just does what he does, and there's no one stopping the Nuggets.
So not too busy of an offseason for the Nuggets. Gabe, who do you see as the biggest winner or loser of the offseason?
Well, my biggest winner of the offseason, I have the Los Angeles Lakers. I think they did a great job building around their two-star players in Anthony Davis and LeBron James. I think they did a great job filling the role player holes that they needed. They need players to be able to play around those guys. You talk about Gabe Vincent, Taurean Prince, Christian Wood, just to name a few. Those guys are going to play quality minutes for this team, and they're going to have to play the role that those players need them to play around them.
I guess the question for the Lakers is whether or not Anthony Davis will be playing quality minutes for them as well. Harry, your biggest offseason winner?
For my biggest offseason winner, I'm going with the Milwaukee Bucks. They're obviously a top contender, got upset by the Miami Heat last year. But when you have Giannis Antetokounmpo and Damian Lillard on the same team, you're obviously going to be good. Bucks in just one game this season have already been all over the NBA headlines with Giannis kind of having a down game, but Damian Lillard stepping up with 39 points and really winning, being super clutch, winning them the game kind of at the end. So I think that was just a huge addition for them, and it's going to put them over the edge. And I think they had one of the best off seasons.
Only a couple days into the season, that Damian Lillard move, we knew it was a good move, but it looks fantastic after his first outing. Next up, we're going to talk MVP. We mentioned that Jokic won it last season, or it was Embiid last season.
2 seasons ago.
2 seasons ago was Jokic. So it's been a couple centers. Gabe, who do you have winning at this go-around?
I know what you guys are going to think, and I know what you guys are going to say, but he's got to win MVP eventually in his career.
That's what they've been saying for every year.
They'll say that every year.
This is the year. I'm taking Luka Doncic to win MVP. 30-point triple-double in opening night. Just a great performance. Another clutch bucket towards the end of the game. He's just, what else do I need to say? He's a great player. The only thing that could hold him back is the Mavericks' overall team success, I think.
And it's one of those teams that we talk about off seasons. The Mavericks didn't do a whole lot. They brought in Grant Williams, of course, but just it feels like maybe they didn't do enough to get over that hurdle of they did miss the playoffs last season. They got a full season in Kyrie Irving, hopefully. Harry, you also have another young and upcoming guard that could take home the MVP this season.
Yes, obviously I love Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, amazing. But I'm kind of going to go with a little dark horse candidate here, a player who took the most 2-point field goals in the entire NBA last year and shot, pretty well. And when you're doing that much, I'm going with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's an amazing point guard. Got his first All-Star appearance last year. First team All-NBA as a point guard. He's still young. He's still improving every year. And again, when you're taking so many shots, he averaged more than 30 points per game. Last year, he was above average shooting from the field. So he just scores. He's a walking bucket. And the only thing, again, holding him back is going to be the Thunder's overall success because they don't really have a ton of guys. They're not really ready to compete. And it is kind of difficult to win the MVP if your team isn't, in the playoffs or play-in. But if the Thunder can exceed some expectations, and maybe if some of those star players get hurt, or something happens where now we have those new rules where you're ineligible for an award if you don't play 65 or more games, with load management and stuff, and he plays every game, it could happen, and he could, come up and win MVP, even though, not a ton of people are expecting it, but I think people are seeing him coming.
Well, we talked about Luka, Shea, 2 guards. It's been a center-dominated award over the last couple seasons. Now let's get into championship conversations. Harry, you talked about why you're picking the Denver Nuggets to repeat, to take it all home. Gabe, who do you have on the other end?
Well, I got the Boston Celtics. I think this is their year if they're going to have one. They have Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, the duo they've had for multiple years now. So they've played together. They know the system. And then they had a big offseason, too, acquiring Drew Holiday, who's going to be really the Marcus Smart replacement on that team, a defensive point guard who can play some offense, too. He's going to be a quality contributor. And, of course, Kristaps Porzingis, who had a great opening night against the New York Knicks, his former team. I think that's just going to be a great team. They have an overall great set of talent, and this is their year.
I've been a doubter of Tingus Pingus for his entire career, but I got to see that man in person at a Hornets preseason game. Hornets did not look good. Kristaps Porzingis looked amazing on the other end. Now, with your 2 finals winners, this is a matchup we could potentially see. If these 2 teams match up, you're still taking the same teams all the way. How do you see Denver matching up with Boston in that scenario?
Yeah, I mean, this is a matchup that we were 1 game away from seeing just last season, so it could very well happen again. For me, if this were to happen again, I would see Nuggets in 6 or 7 just because guarding Nikola Jokic is going to be tough. Yes, a little Kristaps, could help out a little bit with that, but it's just we haven't really seen too many NBA teams able to guard him effectively. And, when Jokic is off the court, we finally saw the Nuggets be able to play without him, with Jamal Murray being able to take the reins, and he kind of showed that he is that guy, and he can't be that guy. So that was the biggest thing holding Nuggets back for many years before, but now I just think they're too dangerous. And any team they match up in, I can't really see them stopping them.
Well, it'll be interesting to see. These are 2 teams that could potentially meet up in the finals, and it'll be an exciting matchup if that does come into play. That's all for the NBA for now. Moving on, we'll wrap up the episode. Thank you for watching this edition of 1-1 Sports. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube to see any and all future episodes.
And follow us on Instagram. And until next time, whose side are you on?
I got a good talk from me today.
Oh,
Beautiful.
Just a little bit outside.
I got distance on that.
I did too, but I missed Scotty Boy.